Your biggest enemy is not out there in the world. It's not your boss, not your family, not the economy, not even the people who doubt you. The real battle is the one happening inside you. The question is simple. When it's you versus you, who wins? When you wake up in the morning, there are always two voices waiting for you. One tells you to stay in bed, to hit the snooze button, to relax a little longer because you deserve it. That voice is the voice of desire. It wants what is easy, what feels good in the moment, and what gives you relief right now. The other voice tells you to rise, to push, to move, to take control of the day before the day takes control of you. That voice is the voice of discipline. The battle between these two voices is the battle that shapes your entire life. If you choose desire, you may feel good for a few moments, but nothing changes. If you choose discipline, you feel discomfort at first, but you unlock progress, growth, and momentum. And the truth is, every successful person, every story of transformation, every great achievement in history was built on discipline, not desire. Discipline is about saying no when everything inside of you wants to say yes. It's about rejecting the short-term pleasure that steals your long-term purpose. Think about the student who wants to watch one more episode instead of studying, the athlete who wants to skip training instead of preparing for greatness, the entrepreneur who wants to scroll social media instead of building their business. Desire whispers comfort, but comfort keeps you average. Discipline, on the other hand, is the bridge between who you are and who you could be. It doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it always feels right in the long run. When you look back on your life, you will not regret the sacrifices you made for growth. You will regret the moments you chose desire over discipline and stayed the same. The problem with desire is that it lies to you. It tells you just this once, but that just once repeats itself every day. It tells you you'll be happier if you quit now, but quitting only leaves you empty. Desire promises freedom, but it delivers chains of regret, chains of missed opportunities, chains of wasted potential. Discipline, however, makes no empty promises. It tells you straight, this will be hard, you will want to quit, you will feel tired, you will feel uncomfortable. But it also delivers something priceless: strength, respect for yourself, and the life you dreamed about when no one else believed you could do it. Discipline doesn't hide the cost, but it guarantees the reward. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about structure. It's about creating order in a world of chaos. Your mind, left on its own, will always default to desire because desire feels good and discipline feels hard. But if you train your mind, if you build habits and routines, you start making discipline automatic. That's why successful people always have rituals. They wake up at the same time, they work out even when they don't feel like it, they write down their goals daily, they structure their days around purpose, not feelings. Feelings are temporary, but discipline creates permanence. If you live by feelings, your life will be a roller coaster. Up when you're motivated, down when you're not. If you live by discipline, your life will be steady, consistent, and unstoppable. It's important to understand that discipline and desire cannot coexist on equal ground. One will always dominate the other. If you give desire an inch, it will take your whole day. You think it's just 5 more minutes of sleep, but it turns into an unproductive morning. You think it's just one skipped workout, but it becomes a week of neglect. You think it's just one day off from your goals, but that one day can turn into weeks, months, even years of regret. Discipline demands that you cut off desire before it takes root. Every time you conquer desire with discipline, you weaken that lazy version of yourself, and you strengthen the version of you that is unstoppable. Look at anyone who has mastered their craft. Athletes, leaders, creators, innovators. They didn't get there by chasing desire. They weren't motivated every day. They didn't always feel like showing up. They didn't always feel like practicing, training, or building, but they showed up anyway. That's discipline. Discipline is doing what must be done even when you don't feel like doing it. And the truth is, the more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes. At first, it feels like resistance. Later, it becomes your identity. You stop saying, I have to be disciplined, and you start saying, I am disciplined. It stops being something you fight to do and starts being who you are. Discipline also builds something. Desire never can. Self-respect. Every time you give in to desire, you lose a little bit of trust in yourself. You feel weak, guilty, and disappointed. But every time you choose discipline, even in the smallest of ways, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses. That proof builds confidence. Confidence doesn't come from wishing or hoping. It comes from stacking evidence of discipline. Each time you push, when you don't feel like pushing, you add another layer to your foundation, and soon that foundation becomes unshakable. That is why people who live with discipline walk with a different energy. They know they can rely on themselves. Desire keeps you trapped in cycles, but discipline frees you to design your future. Discipline says, I will sacrifice today so that I can enjoy tomorrow. Desire says, I will enjoy today and deal with tomorrow when it comes. The problem is, tomorrow always comes, and if you lived by desire yesterday, tomorrow will only bring pain. Discipline reverses that. It may bring temporary pain today, but tomorrow it delivers joy, opportunity, and freedom. Discipline is delayed gratification in action, and delayed gratification is the foundation of every lasting success. And here's the reality. Everyone wants success, but not everyone is willing to pay the price of discipline. That's why most people stay stuck where they are. They want the reward, but not the routine, the prize, but not the process, the glory, but not the grind. Desire wants shortcuts, but discipline knows there are none. Discipline knows that every rep, every step, every sacrifice compounds into greatness. Discipline is not about doing one big thing. It's about doing small things every single day until they transform your life. Comfort is seductive. It whispers to you in the softest voice and convinces you that staying where you are is the safest choice. Comfort tells you that you don't need to push harder, that you've done enough, that it's okay to relax while your goals wait patiently in the background. Comfort makes the couch feel warmer, the excuses sound smarter, and the distractions look more attractive. But comfort is a trap. It disguises itself as peace, but it's really stagnation. It feels like safety, but it's really slow destruction. The enemy of your growth isn't failure, rejection, or even hardship. It's the false security of comfort. Growth can never exist where comfort rules, because comfort demands that you stay the same, while growth demands that you change. Think about every moment in your life when you truly grew. Was it when you were relaxed, coasting, and living inside your comfort zone? Or was it when you faced something that challenged you, stretched you, and forced you to dig deeper than you thought possible? Growth never comes from what is easy. It comes from stepping into situations where you feel unprepared, under pressure, and uncertain. It comes when you take risks, when you fail, when you struggle, and when you fight through obstacles that make you stronger. Comfort doesn't allow those experiences. Comfort shields you from pressure, and by shielding you from pressure, it shields you from progress. The dangerous thing about comfort is how natural it feels. Your brain is wired to seek it, to avoid pain, to find the easiest way out. That's why most people live their entire lives in the same place mentally, physically, and emotionally. They settle into routines that don't stretch them, jobs that don't challenge them, relationships that don't inspire them, and habits that don't elevate them. They think they are choosing happiness, but what they are really choosing is mediocrity. Comfort lulls you into believing that staying where you are is harmless, but the truth is that comfort quietly robs you of your potential. Every year that passes without growth is a year that could have been a breakthrough. Comfort also disguises itself as logic. It makes excuses sound reasonable. It says things like, why push so hard when you're already doing okay? Or why take the risk when you might fail? Comfort convinces you that taking the safe route is smart, but what it doesn't tell you is that playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can do, because while you're sitting in safety, someone else is out there growing, learning, failing, and becoming stronger. While you protect your comfort, the world keeps moving, and eventually you realize that comfort didn't protect you, it left you behind. Growth, on the other hand, is uncomfortable by design. Growth requires effort, and effort requires discomfort. You don't build muscle without breaking it down first. You don't learn new skills without fumbling through mistakes. You don't develop resilience without going through trials. Every step of growth requires that you walk through discomfort and embrace it instead of running from it. That's why those who grow the most are not the ones who seek comfort, but the ones who seek challenge. They understand that the very thing most people avoid, discomfort, is the key that unlocks greatness. Comfort also kills ambition. The moment you start to feel too comfortable with where you are, your hunger fades. You stop striving for more. You stop pushing the boundaries. You stop setting goals that scare you. Ambition and comfort cannot coexist for long, because ambition thrives on dissatisfaction, while comfort feeds on contentment. If you ever want to live an extraordinary life, you have to choose ambition over comfort. You have to be willing to say, I refuse to settle for good when I know great is possible. That mindset alone separates those who stay the same from those who break through. It's easy to think that comfort brings happiness, but comfort doesn't create happiness. It creates numbness. Real happiness comes from progress, from knowing that you're becoming more than you were yesterday. When you're growing, even if it's difficult, you feel alive. When you're stagnant, even if it's easy, you feel restless. That's why so many people who live in comfort zones still feel unfulfilled. They don't understand why they feel empty when everything seems fine on the surface. The reason is simple. Human beings are wired to grow, and when growth stops, the spirit suffers. Comfort denies you the fulfillment that only progress can bring. To grow, you must learn to embrace discomfort as your greatest teacher. Instead of fearing the unknown, you step into it. Instead of avoiding pain, you use it to shape you. Instead of running from challenges, you run toward them because you know that on the other side of challenge lies transformation. Every time you push past comfort, you are forced to level up. You discover strength you didn't know you had. You unlock potential you didn't know existed. And you create results that once felt impossible. The truth is, comfort is not just the enemy of growth. It is the silent killer of dreams. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It does so little by little, day by day, year by year, until you wake up one day and wonder where your passion went, where your ambition went, where your courage went. And by then, it's often too late to get back what you lost. That's why you must fight comfort like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Your future, your potential, your dreams, your legacy all depend on your willingness to step into discomfort and stay there until growth becomes inevitable. Consistency is the invisible force that separates those who dream from those who achieve. It is not the big burst of effort you put in once in a while, not the rare day of inspiration where everything flows, and not the occasional sprint of motivation that pushes you forward for a short time. Consistency is the steady, unshakable commitment to show up every single day, no matter how you feel, no matter what excuses tempt you, and no matter how small the progress seems. The power of daily consistency is that it compounds. A single drop of water may look insignificant, but when those drops fall day after day, they carve rivers, shape landscapes, and create change that no single storm could ever achieve. In the same way, your daily habits, repeated faithfully, have the power to reshape your life in ways you can't even imagine. The challenge with consistency is that it often feels boring. It doesn't always bring immediate results. You go to the gym today and you don't see a six-pack tomorrow. You study 1 hour today and you don't become a master overnight. You invest a little today and you don't become wealthy next week. Consistency requires faith. The faith to believe that small efforts, compounded over time, will bring massive results. Most people give up because they don't see instant payoff, but those who understand the power of consistency know that greatness is built in silence, in the daily repetitions, in the unglamorous routine of showing up again and again. Every success story you admire is not the result of one big action, but thousands of small, consistent actions stacked together. Athletes don't become champions because of one big game. They become champions because of years of consistent training. Writers don't produce masterpieces because of one lucky inspiration. They do it because they sit down every day, writing through the good days and the bad. Entrepreneurs don't build empires because of one breakthrough idea. They build them because of consistent effort, consistent learning, and consistent execution. The world celebrates the highlight, but behind every highlight is a trail of daily discipline. Consistency is also what builds momentum. At first, showing up daily feels heavy, like pushing a massive boulder uphill. The results seem small, the effort feels great, and the temptation to quit is always near. But if you keep pushing, something powerful happens. The boulder starts to move with less resistance. What once felt impossible becomes routine. What once took all your strength becomes natural, and what once felt overwhelming becomes automatic. That is the gift of consistency. It transforms effort into habit, and habit into identity. Once something becomes part of your identity, it no longer feels like a struggle. It feels like who you are. The danger of inconsistency is that it robs you of momentum. Every time you start and stop, you have to push the boulder from the beginning again. You lose the rhythm, you lose the progress, and you waste energy trying to restart. Consistency, even if small, always beats inconsistency. Doing something every day at 50% effort is far more powerful than doing it at 100% effort once in a while, because life rewards persistence, not intensity alone. Intensity gives you a burst, consistency gives you transformation. The power of daily consistency is also found in the trust it builds with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even if it's small, you build self-respect. You prove to yourself that your word means something. And the more you keep that trust, the more confidence you gain. Confidence is not built from wishing, it is built from evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself to do what you said you would do. That evidence is only built through consistency. Inconsistency, on the other hand, weakens your confidence. Every time you break your word to yourself, you lose faith in your own ability to follow through. That's why people who lack consistency often struggle with self-doubt. They don't trust themselves because they have repeatedly let themselves down. Consistency is also a great equalizer. Talent alone is never enough, because talent without consistency becomes wasted potential. But consistency without talent can still take you incredibly far. Someone less skilled but consistent will always surpass someone more skilled but inconsistent, because life does not reward those who start strong. It rewards those who keep going. The person who works every day, even if imperfectly, will eventually outpace the person who works only when inspired. Consistency turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers because it compounds small actions into massive results. Another overlooked truth is that consistency creates clarity. When you commit to showing up daily, you give yourself the chance to improve, refine, and learn. You may not start with perfection, but through repetition, you discover what works and what doesn't. Consistency allows you to adjust along the way. If you only act occasionally, you never build enough data to grow. But if you act daily, you gather experience, wisdom, and understanding that only comes from doing. In this way, consistency becomes the greatest teacher. There is also an emotional power in consistency. When life feels uncertain, chaotic, and unpredictable, consistency becomes an anchor. Your daily habits become a source of stability, a reminder that no matter what happens around you, you are still moving forward. Even if progress feels small, consistency assures you that you are not stuck. You are advancing, step by step. This sense of forward motion creates resilience. It keeps you grounded during storms and keeps you humble during victories. It gives you control in a world that often feels uncontrollable. Ultimately, the power of daily consistency is that it transforms the impossible into the inevitable. What once seemed like a distant dream becomes a natural outcome of your daily actions. You don't have to wonder if you'll succeed. You simply know that if you keep showing up, the results must come. Consistency doesn't ask for perfection. It only asks for commitment. And in that commitment lies the secret to every breakthrough, every success, and every transformation. Your mind is the most powerful weapon you will ever own, but it is also the most dangerous enemy you will ever face. Every dream you hold, every goal you set, every vision you chase begins in your mind. And at the same time, every excuse you make, every fear you feed, every limitation you accept also begins in your mind. That's why your mind is a battlefield. It is the ground where your future is either won or lost. If you learn to master it, you can push through obstacles, silence doubts, and achieve more than you ever thought possible. But if you let it control you, if you allow the negative voices, the excuses, and the fears to dominate, then you will sabotage yourself before the world even has a chance to challenge you. The battlefield of the mind is subtle. You don't hear explosions, you don't see smoke, you don't feel the clash of weapons. Instead, you feel the quiet war of thoughts, the pull between belief and doubt, between courage and fear, between excuses and responsibility. It's the silent fight when you tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow." It's the quiet resistance when you know you should take action, but the voice inside convinces you to wait. It's the inner struggle when your dream whispers, "Go further," and your fear screams, "Turn back." The mind is constantly sending signals, and the direction you choose to follow determines the quality of your life. What makes this battlefield so dangerous is that most people don't even realize they are fighting a war. They think their struggles are external: the economy, the people around them, the lack of resources, the lack of opportunities. But the truth is, the real struggle is internal. If you master your mind, you can navigate external challenges. But if your mind defeats you, no external opportunity will ever be enough. That is why so many people fail, not because they lacked talent or resources, but because they lost the fight in their head before they even began. Your mind can be your greatest ally, but it must be trained. Left untrained, it will default to fear, doubt, and excuses, because that's what feels safe. The brain is designed to protect you, to avoid risk, to choose comfort over challenge. That instinct may keep you alive, but it will never allow you to thrive. To win the battlefield of the mind, you must reprogram your thoughts. You must teach your mind to see obstacles as opportunities, to see failure as feedback, and to see challenges as growth. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens through intentional effort, through feeding your mind with strength, with discipline, with belief, until those become your natural responses. One of the greatest weapons in the battlefield of the mind is focus. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on problems, they will grow larger in your mind until they crush your willpower. If you focus on possibilities, they will grow larger until they inspire your action. Focus is not just about ignoring distractions. It's about deliberately choosing what you give your mental energy to. Every day, you are planting seeds in your mind. The question is, are you planting seeds of fear or seeds of faith, seeds of weakness or seeds of strength, seeds of limitation or seeds of possibility? The battlefield of the mind is won by the seeds you choose to plant daily. Another powerful weapon is belief. Your mind will always fight to prove you right, whether your belief is positive or negative. If you believe you are weak, your mind will highlight every mistake and magnify every failure to reinforce that belief. If you believe you are strong, your mind will find evidence of your resilience, remind you of your victories, and push you to keep going. Belief acts like a lens that colors everything you see. Two people can face the same challenge. One sees it as impossible, the other sees it as a stepping stone. The difference isn't the challenge, it's the battlefield in their minds. But perhaps the greatest enemy on this battlefield is the voice of self-doubt. Self-doubt is relentless. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It tells you that you're not good enough, that you're not ready, that someone else is more talented, more capable, more deserving. It convinces you to settle, to shrink, to stop before you've even started. And the more you listen, the louder it becomes. To silence that voice, you must fight back with action. Action is the antidote to doubt. Every time you take a step forward despite fear, you weaken the voice of self-doubt and strengthen the voice of courage. The more action you take, the more proof you create that you are capable. Over time, that proof becomes armor, and your mind begins to work for you, not against you. You also need to guard your mind like a fortress. The battlefield is not only influenced by your thoughts, but also by the environment you allow in. The content you consume, the people you surround yourself with, the conversations you entertain, all of these feed your mind. If you surround yourself with negativity, your mind will be filled with doubt and fear. If you surround yourself with inspiration, wisdom, and encouragement, your mind will be filled with possibility and strength. Just as a soldier protects their territory from invaders, you must protect your mind from influences that weaken you. And finally, you must accept that this battlefield is never ending. Winning once is not enough. Just because you defeated fear yesterday doesn't mean it won't try to creep back in today. Just because you silenced doubt once doesn't mean it won't whisper again tomorrow. That's why discipline of the mind is a daily practice. It's about showing up to the battlefield every morning, sharpening your weapons, and refusing to surrender. The fight never ends, but neither does the growth, the strength, and the power that comes from winning again and again. The reason many people stay stuck in the same cycle year after year is not because they lack discipline, not because they lack opportunity, and not even because they lack motivation. It's because they are still identifying with the old version of themselves. You cannot build a new life while clinging to an old identity, if deep down you still see yourself as someone who quits, as someone who is lazy, as someone who is weak. Then no matter how hard you try to change your actions, eventually you will fall back into the habits that align with that identity. The truth is, your behavior will always rise or fall to the level of who you believe you are. That is why the greatest transformation you can ever experience is an identity shift. The moment you stop identifying with your weaker self and start stepping into the stronger version of you that has always been waiting. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. When you tell yourself, "I am disciplined," every choice you make either strengthens that identity or weakens it. When you tell yourself, "I am lazy," your actions naturally align with that story. People struggle to change because they focus on behavior instead of identity. They try to force themselves to act differently without first changing the way they see themselves. But identity is the root, and behavior is the fruit. If you want to bear different fruit, you must change the root. You cannot become the stronger you until you decide to kill the story of the weaker you. The weaker version of you thrives on labels. It convinces you that you are just not a morning person, or just not disciplined, or just someone who always struggles. Those labels may feel like truths, but they are only stories you have repeated long enough to believe. The moment you challenge those stories, you begin to break free. Instead of saying, "I can't," you begin to say, "I don't." Instead of saying, "I wish I was," you begin to say, "I am." That small shift in language is not about pretending. It is about claiming the identity you are willing to grow into. The stronger you is not born by chance. It is born by choice, and that choice starts with the way you define yourself. The process of identity shift requires courage because it demands that you let go of who you were. Many people cling to their old identity because it feels safe, even if it is painful. They are comfortable calling themselves average, comfortable identifying as someone who never follows through, comfortable living as the weaker version because at least it is familiar. But growth requires that you walk away from that comfort and step into the unknown. You have to be willing to say, "I am no longer that person. I may not fully be the new me yet, but I choose to step into it." That act of choosing is what begins the transformation. Identity is not something you wait to happen. It is something you claim and then grow into through consistent action. Think about someone who transforms their life completely. An addict who becomes sober, an unfit person who becomes an athlete, a shy person who becomes a leader. Their transformation didn't begin with a single action. It began with an identity shift. They stopped saying, "I'm just an addict," and started saying, "I am free." They stopped saying, "I'm just unhealthy," and started saying, "I am disciplined." They stopped saying, "I'm just shy," and started saying, "I am confident." Once they claimed that identity, their actions slowly aligned with it. The shift didn't make the journey easy, but it made it possible because they were no longer fighting to act against their identity. They were acting in alignment with it. The stronger version of you already exists inside you, but it is hidden beneath the layers of old stories, past failures, and limiting beliefs. Identity shift is like peeling away those layers to reveal who you were meant to be all along. But peeling away requires effort, It requires challenging the voice that says, "You can't," and replacing it with, "I will." It requires ignoring the evidence of the past and focusing on the vision of the future. It requires seeing yourself not for who you are right now, but for who you are becoming. The stronger you is always available, but only if you stop feeding the weaker identity that has kept you stuck. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce a new identity is through environment. If you surround yourself with people and places that reflect the old you, it will be difficult to step into the stronger you. But if you surround yourself with people who embody the identity you want to claim, if you place yourself in environments that demand growth, if you fill your mind with messages that align with your new self, then your identity shift becomes inevitable. Identity is not only shaped internally, but also externally by the voices, the influences, and the standards you allow around you. If you want to become the stronger you, make sure your environment is aligned with that version, not the weaker one. Another crucial part of identity shift is action, because action reinforces belief. You cannot just declare a new identity, you must live it into reality. If you say, "I am disciplined," then every time you wake up on time, every time you push through a workout, every time you choose focus over distraction, you cast another vote for that identity. The more votes you cast, the stronger the identity becomes. Over time, it stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like who you are. This is why small daily actions matter so much. They are not just habits, they are declarations of identity. Every action is either strengthening the weaker you or the stronger you, and the choice is always in your hands. And the truth is, this identity shift never fully ends. You are always in the process of becoming. Each level of growth demands a new version of you, a stronger identity, a higher standard. The person you are today may be stronger than the person you were yesterday, but if you want to keep moving forward, you cannot stop evolving. The battle is not only against the old you, it is also about continuously creating the next, stronger you. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people see it as the end, as proof that they are not good enough, as a sign that they should stop trying. But failure is not the end. It is simply part of the process, a form of training that shapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable than you were before. Every failure you encounter is not a signal to quit, but an opportunity to learn. When you shift your perspective and see failure not as defeat, but as training, you take away its power to discourage you, and instead use it as fuel to prepare for the next step forward. The truth is, you cannot grow without failing. Success and failure are not opposites, they are partners, working together to build the version of you that is capable of carrying the weight of your dreams. The problem is that from an early age, society conditions us to fear failure. We are taught that failing is shameful, that it makes us look weak, that it labels us as losers. Schools punish mistakes, workplaces reward perfection, and families often pressure us to avoid risks. Over time, we internalize the belief that failure is something to avoid at all costs. As a result, most people never reach their full potential, not because they lack ability, but because they lack the courage to face failure. They live in the safe zone, never trying anything bold, never risking embarrassment, never stepping outside what they already know. But in choosing safety, they also choose stagnation, because without failure, there is no true learning, and without learning, there is no growth. Think about every skill you have ever mastered in your life. Whether it was learning to walk, learning to ride a bike, learning to speak, or learning to work in your career, you failed countless times before you succeeded. You fell when you tried to walk, you crashed when you rode, you stumbled when you spoke, you made mistakes when you worked. But none of those failures stopped you because you didn't see them as failures. You saw them as practice. That is exactly what failure is: practice, training, repetition, feedback. The only difference is that as adults, we label it differently. We attach emotions of shame and fear to it instead of seeing it as the natural path to progress. Failure is training because it reveals your weaknesses. When you attempt something and fall short, Failure shines a light on the areas where you need to improve. Without failure, you would never know what needs work. Imagine an athlete who never loses. How would they know what to train harder on? Imagine a business owner who never faces setbacks. How would they learn to adapt to challenges? Failure provides clarity. It points directly to the gaps in your skill set, your mindset, your preparation. Instead of hiding from that feedback, the strongest people embrace it. They study their failures, they extract lessons, and they use those lessons to grow sharper and stronger for the next attempt. Failure is also training for resilience. Every time you fail and get back up, you strengthen your ability to endure. The weaker version of you wants to quit after one setback, but the stronger version understands that persistence is forged through difficulty. Resilience cannot be taught in theory. It must be developed through experience. You don't become resilient by reading about it. You become resilient by facing something that knocks you down and deciding to rise anyway. Every failure you survive adds another layer of toughness to your character. And with each layer, you become less afraid of the next challenge because you know you've endured before and you can endure again. Another reason failure is powerful training is because it humbles you. Success can make you complacent. It can make you think you figured it all out. Failure reminds you that there is always more to learn, always more to refine, always more to develop. Humility is essential for long-term growth because it keeps you open to feedback, willing to adapt, and eager to keep improving. Without failure, you risk building arrogance. With failure, you gain perspective. You learn that no matter how strong or skilled you are, there will always be areas where you can improve. That humility becomes a source of strength because it keeps you hungry and grounded. Failure also teaches you to detach your identity from your results. Many people take failure personally. They see it as a reflection of who they are instead of what they did. They say, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." That mindset is destructive because it chains your worth to your outcomes. But when you see failure as training, you understand that it doesn't define you. It refines you. Failing at something does not make you a failure. It makes you a student. The only true failure is refusing to try again. As long as you rise, as long as you learn, as long as you adjust and keep moving, failure becomes nothing more than a stepping stone toward mastery. One of the greatest truths about failure is that it prepares you for success in ways success never could. Success feels good, but it doesn't demand much of you. Failure, on the other hand, stretches you, toughens you, and forces you to develop skills and character traits that will be essential once success comes. Without those traits, even if you achieve success, you won't be able to sustain it. That's why so many people who achieve quick success without struggle lose it just as quickly. They never went through the training of failure that would have given them the foundation to handle success with strength and wisdom. Failure is the training ground that equips you to carry the weight of the victory you are pursuing. If you want to achieve greatness, you must change the way you see failure. You must embrace it as a teacher, not an enemy. Every setback is a lesson. Every mistake is a practice round. Every rejection is redirection. The people who rise to the top are not the ones who never failed. They are the ones who failed the most and refused to quit. They turned failure into fuel, setbacks into stepping stones, and rejection into redirection. They understood that every failure was preparing them for the strength, wisdom, and resilience required to succeed. Life is a constant struggle, not against the world outside, but against the world within. Every day you wake up, you are confronted with choices, and those choices determine which version of yourself wins. One side of you craves discipline, progress, and greatness. The other side craves comfort, ease, and mediocrity. This is the eternal battle, the ongoing war between who you are and who you could be. The battlefield is your mind, your habits, your daily decisions. No matter how much success you achieve, no matter how strong you become, the battle never ends. The reason it never ends is because growth never stops. Each level of your life will demand a new version of you, and each new version of you will require that you defeat the weaker one who wants to hold on to the old ways. This battle is eternal because the weaker side of you will always exist. It never fully goes away. It whispers to you when you feel tired. It tempts you when you feel uncertain. It pulls you back when you start to move forward. It shows up in procrastination, in excuses, in self-doubt, in the moments when quitting looks easier than continuing. You cannot escape it. You can only confront it. But confrontation is not a one-time event. It is a daily discipline. Every morning when you wake up, the weaker self is waiting, and every morning you must choose whether you will submit to it or fight against it. The eternal battle is not about defeating others. It is about defeating yourself. Too many people spend their energy competing with the world, measuring themselves against others, trying to prove something to society. But the truth is, the only real competition that matters is the one between the old you and the new you. Every day is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you will not let your fears, your doubts, your excuses control you. The new you is forged only when you are willing to silence the old you. And that battle cannot be outsourced. It is yours alone to fight. What makes this battle so challenging is that the weaker version of you doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like a friend. It tells you to relax, to take it easy, to wait until tomorrow. It tells you that you've done enough, that you deserve a break, that success will come without too much effort. It disguises itself as kindness, but in reality, it is sabotage. The weaker you wants to protect you from discomfort, but in doing so, it protects you from growth. It convinces you to trade long-term fulfillment for short-term comfort. And if you aren't careful, you'll lose years of your life before realizing that the enemy was never out there. It was always inside. The stronger version of you, however, calls you to rise. It doesn't shout. It whispers with conviction. It tells you to get up, even when you don't feel like it. It pushes you to practice when no one is watching. It demands that you stay committed even when progress feels invisible. It is not easy to listen to this voice because it doesn't promise comfort. It promises challenge. But within that challenge lies growth, strength, and transformation. The stronger you cannot be born unless you allow it to emerge through struggle. And the only way it emerges is when you choose to listen to it over the tempting voice of weakness. The eternal battle is also fought in your habits. What you repeatedly do determines which side of you grows stronger. If you consistently give in to the weaker side, it becomes more powerful, more persuasive, more dominant. But if you consistently feed the stronger side through discipline, through consistency, through courage, it begins to win more often. That's why small daily actions matter so much. They are not just actions, they are votes for which version of you want to strengthen. Every workout, every hour of focus, every step forward is not just progress toward your goal, it is reinforcement of the stronger you. Every skipped workout, every wasted day, every excuse accepted is reinforcement of the weaker you. The battle never ends, but you decide every day which side gains more ground. The eternal battle also requires awareness. You cannot fight what you cannot see. Many people lose the battle not because they are incapable, but because they are unaware. They don't realize when the weaker self is in control. They don't notice when procrastination has turned into a habit, when fear has disguised itself as caution, when laziness has been justified as self-care. The stronger you begins with awareness, the ability to see through the lies of the weaker self. Once you recognize the pattern, you can interrupt it. Once you see the excuses for what they are, you can choose discipline instead. Awareness gives you power, and power allows you to choose growth over stagnation. What makes this battle eternal is also what makes it meaningful. If the fight ever ended, if you ever fully destroyed the weaker version of yourself, growth would stop. The fact that it never ends means you will always have another level to reach, another version of yourself to unlock, another challenge to conquer. That's why people who achieve great success often remind themselves that the journey is never complete. The stronger you is not a destination. It is a continual process of becoming. Each day is another chance to step into that process, to embrace the struggle, and to grow from it. The eternal battle is what makes life fulfilling. Without it, life would be empty. Struggle gives meaning to victory, effort gives value to achievement, and sacrifice gives weight to reward. If everything came easy, nothing would matter. The fact that you must fight yourself every day is the very thing that makes your victories worth celebrating. The eternal battle is not something to fear, it is something to embrace, because it is proof that you are alive, that you are still growing, that you are still on the path to becoming more than you were yesterday.